So the NBA is finishing up its regular season, and I wanted to go through every single team in the Western Conference and just kind of give a status update and what's currently going on about these teams and what I think their direction is going to be headed to over the next few weeks. It's really just giving me an excuse to talk about every team in the Western Conference, and if you guys enjoy this video and you want to see me do something in the Eastern Conference, just drop a thumbs up or let me know down below. And we will start off with the best team in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder. This team has been on a tear this year. They are the #1 team in the NBA defensively. They're #4 offensively, and they're #1 net rating wise in the NBA. They have massive wins this season over the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have the MVP on their roster right now, in my opinion, in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's having one of the best guard seasons offensively we have seen since 2016 Steph Curry. He is now averaging 33 points on the year, which would give him the scoring title. And in my opinion, he's got the MVP award locked up. He's leading the NBA as well with field goals attempted and free throws this season. He's averaging 5 rebounds and 6 assists. And yeah, he is the best player on the best team in the NBA this year, but he's surrounded by so many good complementary pieces on offense, like Jalen Williams and now Chet Holmgren, and defensively with Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Kenrich Williams, Aaron Wiggins. This team is so deep, and I do think they are the favorite right now to make it out of the Western Conference. That's not a big shocker. That's not a hot take, but they've been this good all year long, and I do think they're going to go all the way this season. I mean, don't look now, but they are the 2nd seed here in the Western Conference. They're currently on a 8-game winning streak, and that is your Houston Rockets, who got off to a great start this year, but leading up to the All-Star break, they were playing some really bad basketball, and they're getting healthy at the right time. Over their last 15 games as a whole, they are 11-4. They're about league average offensively, but they do have one of the best defenses in the NBA. They still struggle at times to shoot the 3-point ball, but they have so many good defenders on their team. When Amen Thompson is healthy, and obviously Tari Eason and Dylan Brooks, but they're really just going to come down on their young guys and how consistent they can be offensively in the playoffs. How will Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun both look in a 7-game series where teams are going to have multiple games in a row to evaluate and strategically plan around those two guys? And I am still a little bit nervous about this team's inexperience in a round 1 series, but they're kind of playing with house money this year. Just the fact that they may finish as a top 5 seed in the Western Conference, when maybe there was going to be a scenario where they were a playing tournament team this year. I think you're heading in the right direction with this young core in Houston. Now let's talk about the LA Lakers, a team that is currently right around 12th in offensive rating and 12th in defensive rating this year, but we know they made the biggest switch up at the trade deadline, acquiring Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. And it has been unfortunate that LeBron James has been hurt as of late, but over their last 15 games, they are the 4th best team in the NBA defensively, and Austin Reeves has turned into one of the best playmakers in the Western Conference. And Austin Reeves has stepped up so much since the Anthony Davis trade, and even when LeBron has been out. Over the last 20 games, the Lakers are 14-6, and in those 20 games, Austin Reeves is averaging 22.5 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and shooting 45% from the field, 36% from 3, and 93% from the free throw line, getting to the line 7 times a night. Austin Reeves' playmaking has gone up another level this year. He's going to be a huge X factor for the Lakers in the playoffs. And while I do get a little bit pessimistic about the Lakers in the playoffs just because of their rim protection and their perimeter defense at times, they've still been good defensively over the last few weeks, and I'm excited just to see LeBron, Luka, and Reeves fully healthy in April, May, and maybe June this year. Because sometimes maybe Luka doesn't look like his normal self, but he could still put up 31 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds in a win against the Denver Nuggets, or could put up 45 points, 11 rebounds in a loss against the Milwaukee Bucks. He's still going to get his numbers, but like I said, it's really going to come down on their defense. We know they can score, but can they defend in a 7-game playoff series to a team that may have a mismatch against the Lakers on paper? I don't really know what to think of the Denver Nuggets, because at the start of the year, I was worried about them, and then I really thought they were the #2 in the Western Conference, and that was a clear definitive answer, but they've been so inconsistent as of late. And they actually beat the Warriors the other night without Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and Jokic is still having an incredible year offensively and is most likely going to finish runner-up in the MVP voting, and he's averaging a triple-double this year. But you can't say the same about Jokic's defense, which at times can be the bane of their existence. And the supporting cast has also put up some really good numbers this year. If you check and look at Aaron Gordon's 3-point percentage, take a guess what it is. It's at 46% this year, and he shot 29% from 3 last year. And Jamal Murray has been better as of late offensively after getting off that rough start. They still have Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, Michael Porter Jr., still good complementary pieces, and Peyton Watson defensively around Jokic. I just think this team has been way too inconsistent this year if we want to take them seriously as a title contender, because it's now been 2 years since they won it all in 2023. They had a disappointing round 2 exit last year against Minnesota. I think there are some favorable matchups for Denver that they can make it to the Western Conference Finals and go up against OKC, but they are a bottom 10 defense, and that may come back and bite them in the playoffs. Another team that is just kind of all over the place this year, and I'm afraid they may end up as a round 1 exit, the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, at one point this year, there was a decent stretch where the Memphis Grizzlies were a top 5 offensive team in the NBA and a top 5 defensive team. Now, that defense has kind of been going downhill a little bit, but they're still a top 5 team in terms of net rating this year. They've had some bad losses recently, losing to Portland by 16 or losing to Sacramento by 10, a banged up Kings team. They lost to the Cavs by 9 recently. They got blown out by the Thunder. And I think there is a scenario where they can win a round 1 matchup. Maybe they match up very well against the Golden State Warriors or the Lakers or the Rockets, or one team they can get in that 4-5 or 3-6 matchup. But over their last 15 games, they pretty much had a league average offense and a league average defense. They are 7-8 in those 15 games. But it looks like we're kind of getting that old Ja Morant back, which is going to be a massive X factor if the Grizzlies want to shock a lot of people and win multiple playoff series in a few weeks. Now, here's the hottest team since the trade deadline, the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy Butler has only lost twice as a Golden State Warrior so far. So yeah, he is 15-2 since becoming a Warrior. The synergy is perfect with him and Draymond and Steph Curry. And Draymond Green has been one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he may end up on all defensive first team as well. They recently got back Jonathan Kuminga. Looks like Quinton Post was a phenomenal find in the second round in the 2024 draft. Brandon Podziemski has been playing some great basketball since the Jimmy Butler trade as well. This team can get some very favorable matchups in round 1. Yeah, they lack a little bit of size, but they really have some good perimeter and post defense. And Steph Curry's giving us shades of 2016 Steph. And if he could do that for a few more weeks, Golden State could definitely win a round 1 series, maybe even a round 2 series. I struggle to take them over OKC, but they are a massive wild card in all of this. Another team that has been exceeding expectations this year, I've had some takes about this team preseason that have aged like milk, and that is going to be about the LA Clippers, who are around 9 games above 500 at the moment. They have one of the best defenses in the NBA, headlined by Ivica Zubac, Kawhi Leonard, Chris Dunn, and Derrick Jones Jr. James Harden was an all-star this year, and this team's offense was struggling in the first half because it was pretty much carried by James Harden and Norman Powell. But over the last few weeks, their offense has looked very good with Kawhi Leonard back. They've scored over 119 points in each of their last 4 games, blowing out the bad teams in front of them. That's usually a good sign, and they recently beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, the best team in the Eastern Conference all year, by double digits. And Kawhi Leonard has had his moments where he's looking like vintage Kawhi again, and Ivica Zubac has taken strides on both ends of the floor. Like I mentioned, Harden was an all-star. If they can get Norman Powell healthy, they can have a really good closing lineup with Harden, Powell, Kawhi, Derrick Jones Jr., and Ivica Zubac, and that could be a scary team if they could stay healthy in a 7-game playoff series. And if they somehow match up with Memphis or Denver or Houston in round number 1, that could be a massive upset for the Clippers. And I thought preseason, when Kawhi was out indefinitely, we had no idea when he was going to come back. Harden was getting a little bit older. Norman Powell didn't break out. In year number 10, I was worried this could be a disastrous year for a team that didn't own their first round pick in the 2025 draft, and I couldn't have been more wrong, and I'm happy I am wrong about this. I mentioned how the Warriors are a wildcard team. I also think this is a wildcard team as well. On my podcast, I put them over the Lakers as a contender in the West because they were on an 8-game winning streak, and then they lost a close game to the Pacers and another close game against the Pelicans, and a lot of their losses this year have been in the clutch, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are a top 10 team in the NBA in terms of net rating. They're number 6 defensively and number 10 offensively. Over their last 15 games, they are 7th in the NBA in terms of net rating, and they are starting to get fully healthy again. Anthony Edwards can still have incredible shooting nights. We're getting some of the best offensive stretches from Jaden McDaniels in his career, but I feel like sometimes they just don't work well in the clutch, and they're blowing games that they should win. They have a deep roster when they are fully healthy. I worry about this team once again with Rudy Gobert in a playoff series, but I think Anthony Edwards has elevating himself into a top 6 player in the NBA this year, and he can carry this team throughout the Western Conference playoffs. The only scary thing is they're currently the 8th seed in the West. They would have to get through at least one play-in tournament game at the moment, and then they'd match up with either OKC or potentially the 2 seed, which could be the LA Lakers or the Denver Nuggets, and I'm not a big fan of those matchups for Minnesota. I do think they could still win one of those series, but I think it would be a little bit tough. You also wouldn't have home court in those series. They're basically 1 game behind the Warriors right now for the 6th seed, so that is a realistic goal for them to hit this year, is to still be a top 6 team in the Western Conference. I do feel like they have the talent to make a run and go up against OKC in the Western Conference Finals. I would just be a little bit hesitant if they are a playing tournament team and they have to go through an extra game or two, especially if they lose that playing tournament game and they got to go up against OKC in round number 1. it may be an early exit for the Wolves at that point. For the Sacramento Kings, it's really tough to buy into this team this year. Domantas Sabonis has been hurt over the last few weeks, and he's going to be out for a little bit more time as well. They got blown out by the Knicks recently, blown out by the Warriors, and blown out by the Suns. Now, they recently beat the Grizzlies and the Cavs, which was very impressive with no Domantas Sabonis, and Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan played phenomenal in that game. And we also got one of the best games of Devin Carter's rookie season. I just also struggle to find this team winning 1 or 2 play-in tournament games and upsetting the 2 seed or the 1-seeded Thunder in the playoffs, because they're a borderline bottom 10 defensive team in the NBA. They could score, and I still think Zach LaVine can provide them really good offense in the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to be well balanced enough to win 4 games out of 7 against either the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Warriors, or the Thunder. So yeah, maybe they could match up against a team like the Rockets and the Grizzlies, teams that I think are a little bit more vulnerable in a round 1 series. I just think now you're asking for too much, and I can't really see the Kings making a run this year, sadly. I mean, the Phoenix Suns have been one of the more disappointing teams in the NBA. They finally lapped Dallas for the 10th seed in the Western Conference. Now they're at a point where they have to win 2 play-in tournament games just to go up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They got swept last year against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This Thunder team is so much better. It would be another sweep because Phoenix cannot play a lick of defense right now. They are the 27th ranked team in the NBA in terms of defensive rating this season, and they've been a bottom 5 defensive team over their last 15 games as well. So it's been an issue all year for the Suns. They can score, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker can combine for 60 points any given night. It's just the rest of the team as a whole cannot carry the load defensively. Bradley Beal, taking up a decent amount of their cap space, has missed a ton of time this year, but the Suns do not own their first round pick in the 2025 draft. So they want to win as many games as possible, and then you feel a little bit better about giving Houston the 15th overall pick in the draft rather than giving it a shot that it can go up into the top 4 in the lottery. I feel like it's inevitable that either Mike Budenholzer is going to get fired or Kevin Durant is going to get traded, and this Suns team is going to look completely different next year, even if they make it to the playoffs as an 8 seed or if they don't make it into the play-in tournament at all. But the team that I feel like is just starting to tank on purpose, the Dallas Mavericks, and they are just allowing Anthony Davis to take his sweet old time before coming back, because I'm sure they want to have a better pick for the 2025 draft. Since Kyrie Irving went down with that torn ACL, they now have a 0% chance at doing anything in the playoffs. Maybe if this team at full strength got the 7th seed or the 6th seed, they could maybe make a run and meet OKC in the Western Conference Finals, but that's not happening if you're going to be in the 9-10 matchup and you have to go up against OKC in round number 1. They may have to forfeit games at the end of the year. That's how unlucky this team has been with injuries, and over the last few weeks, their losses have been bad. They lost by 24 points to the Warriors, they lost by 8 to the Lakers, 15 to the Bucks, 24 to the Kings, 30 to the Bucks again, lost by 11 to the Grizzlies, 9 to the Suns, 10 to the banged up Spurs. Then they ended up losing by 37 points against the Rockets, and then recently lost to the tanking Sixers. And then in another game that they blew in that 4th quarter against the Indiana Pacers. They can only get so much out of their core right now, which is basically Kai Jones, Kessler Edwards. They were getting a little bit of Brandon Williams at some point. They still have so many injuries, and maybe the lottery gods reward this fan base and they can go up into the top 4, but the odds of that are still so low, and I don't think this ownership or their front office deserves to be rewarded with a Dylan Harper or a Cooper Flag in the 2025 draft. So maybe Dallas just ends up trading for Kevin Durant in the offseason. Maybe they end up just letting Kyrie walk or doing a sign and trade or trading Anthony Davis. I don't know at this point, because if you trade Luka Doncic, you could really just do anything. And I feel like they are just a massive wild card in just general in the NBA and how they're going to look in 2026, because PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford could be free agents next year. They got to re-sign Derek Lively that offseason as well. This team may look very different in just 4 months. So the team behind the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference standings right now, the Portland Trail Blazers, who have had a very encouraging season because they're around league average defensively. And I think Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin may have had their job saved this year because of the emergence of Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, and their play of year 2 Scoot Henderson and rookie Donovan Clingan. And Shaedon Sharpe, over a 60-game sample size now, has looked very solid offensively, and I hope can continue to grow because he didn't have any college play. This is basically his 3rd year of professional basketball at a high level, and he only played 32 games last year. So I do think that Shaedon Sharpe is still on the right path. I just kind of want to see DeAndre Ayton and Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams off this team next year, and this could be one of the more exciting teams in the Western Conference in 2026. Maybe they get lucky in the draft lottery You add Dylan Harper or Cooper Flagg or VJ Edgecombe to this team, and now we're cooking for the future in Portland. San Antonio is also entering the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes right now, as Wemby, we all know, was ruled out back in February with the blood clot for the rest of the year. They've recently shut down De'Aaron Fox for the season as well. It does look like they are going to get the Rookie of the Year from this class in Stephon Castle this year, and they hope to get something consistently out of Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, and Keldon Johnson throughout the rest of the year. This team could also look a little bit different next year because they do own their first round pick, which is probably going to end up top 10. Atlanta may make the playoffs, and they own their first round pick as well, so they're going to have 2 incoming rookies if they decide to draft both of them. I hope Chris Paul is back for another year. I hope that we do see Greg Popovich coaching next year, and I do think this team is obviously heading in the right direction around Wemby. Him and Fox are going to have another year of chemistry in 2026, and I do think they're going to be a playoff team that year as well. I mean, the Pelicans have just been so disappointing just because of injuries, but they're going to suck me in next year because I like the dynamic of this roster. I think Zion Williamson could be a top 15 player, a top 10 player in the NBA maybe, if he could just stay healthy. And I know that's just asking for so much out of Zion, but they got a contract year, CJ McCollum next year. You have Trey Murphy, hopefully fully healthy, and we saw this year a great offensive stretch for him. You're gonna have Jordan Hawkins fully healthy, Jose Alvarado in the rotation, Brandon Boston, Karl Makovich, Herb Jones fully healthy. You're gonna bring back Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown, the players you got back from Brandon Ingram. And oh yeah, you're probably gonna have a top 5 or top 6 pick in this draft. What if this team adds Dylan Harper or Cooper Flagg? What if they're able to make a move in the offseason, and then you maybe get DeJounte Murray back in the second half of next year's season? I think this team could be a playing tournament team in the West, because you think that there are some teams that could be on the decline next year, and maybe they're able to be better than Portland or San Antonio, and they could have been a playing tournament team this year if they were just healthy. And I don't think that they're going to have this type of frequency in terms of injuries next year. So I'm going to be really excited about Pelicans basketball in 2026. And the Jazz have recently rivaled the Wizards for the worst team in the NBA. Yeah, they're trying to capture the flag at the moment as well. They are 39 games under 500. They are 16-54 at the moment. They're not the worst team in the NBA offensively, but they are one of the worst teams defensively. And I think about this Jazz team going forward, they're going to have, once again, multiple first round picks. I think they're going to be very reliant on some lottery luck this year. I like Will Hardy as the head coach. I wonder if they're going to move off from some of their veterans in the offseason, like Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, and John Collins, a trio that I think could have been moved at the deadline. Would they entertain Lauri Markkanen or Walker Kessler trade calls in the offseason? They have a lot of quality in terms of young talent that I like. I like Bryce Sensabaugh. I like Kessler. I like Collier. I think there's something there in Kyle Filipowski and Cody Williams, and hopefully Taylor Hendricks can look like he did in March of last year in 2026. And I didn't even mention Keontae George. So I think, like I said, a lot is going to be reliant on this lottery and how this team is going to look next year. If they get Cooper Flagg or not, if they get Dylan Harper or not, I still expect this team to be one of the worst teams in 2026. They want to get AJ DeBanzo or one of the premier prospects in 2026, and then hopefully be a competitive team in 2027. So yeah, that is gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think of the style of this video down below, and if you want to see an Eastern Conference version of this as well. So just, yeah, let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.